Hello, everybody. Welcome to Zone Defense. Be sure to follow us on Spotify at Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Zone Defense Podcast. And be sure to ring that bell to get post notifications. Also, drop a comment down below and let us know your thoughts on today's topic. Today, Chris, Roman, and I will be continuing our NFL Weekly Pick'em episodes for Week 2. How's it going, Roman?
I'm good, Drew. I know we were all excited about the outcome of Week 1. Our picks kind of reflected that a little bit. You and Chris are tied for first at 10-6. I'm right there at 9-7, but I do think we're going to have a lot of more debates today, even though it kind of seems like it's a more favorable pick'em, but there'll a lot of upsets along the way.
Yeah, it should be a really good week. I mean, Week 1 was just so incredible. It's just great to have football back. Hopefully, they can keep up the low COVID numbers, and we can keep getting our football. But let's jump into the news and notes just right away. Let's get right to it. A couple tough injuries in Week 1. Starting off with Colts running back Marlon Mack. He's out for the season now. He tore his Achilles in Week 1. It's the Jonathan Taylor show from now on, and I'm sure we'll talk about him at some point today. But also tight end Blake Jarwin tore his ACL. He's also out for the season. That was on a non-contact injury. That was really tough to see. It looked bad right off the bat in the Sunday night game last week. Just kind of touch up on what this means to each one of those teams. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, for Marlon Mack, I disagree. I don't think it's going to be just the whole Jonathan Taylor show because Nyheim Hines looked really, really good in Week 1 as well. And as we saw with the Chargers, Phillip Rivers likes dropping out to his running backs, and and Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler are both really good. And I think we could see something very similar there with Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. But unfortunately for Mack, I mean, he looked really, really good to start the game. And I thought he looked just as good as he did. I think last couple of years he's looked really, really good. And there were some doubts maybe he wouldn't be as good this year because Jonathan Taylor's there. But he looked really, really good. And it's really unfortunate for him because I think he could have had a career year had he not torn his Achilles. So it sucks for him. But in terms of the team, if there was one team that could afford to lose one of their top running backs, it definitely was this team because, like I said, they have Jonathan Taylor, they have Nyheim Hines, two guys who I think would be clear-cut number one guys on really any other team. I think Blake Jarwin is probably has much more of an impact for the Cowboys going forward because he was supposed to be really, really good this year. He showed flashes of it previously, and he even looked pretty good there before he went down with that injury, which was a really weird injury. He kind of was running a route, and then he just tore his ACL and he just dropped. Yeah. And a lot of experts predicted him to have a really, really big season this year, kind of fill in that, be like Jason Witten was, not last year's Jason Witten, but Jason Witten, good Jason Witten. And we could even kind of tell, I mean, when he went down with that injury, that was kind of when the Dallas offense kind of stopped moving because they couldn't run as many as their good plays with their backups. And I think, I feel like maybe moving forward it'll be a little bit easier because they have so many weapons offensively. But in terms of tight end, they don't really have a good tight end anymore, at least in my opinion. But Roman, what do you think?
Yeah, Blake Jarwin will be a loss in some way or another, although they do have plenty of good wide receivers to fill in that role. I think Gallup and Lamb will get more of an increased role, and hopefully they can get some more production with their backup tight ends. I actually want to go back to Jonathan Taylor because I actually fall in the middle of you two. I do think that obviously Nyheim Hines is a big pickup off the waivers this week, and he will have maybe an increased role in the next couple of weeks. And they were proving that at the beginning of the game. They were giving it to Hines right away. So it looked like that was the plan all along. But I do think ultimately by the end of the season or maybe in a couple weeks from now, it will definitely be the Jonathan Taylor show. And if you drafted him, you don't want to keep him for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I kind of said it was a Jonathan Taylor show, I just kind of meant that he's going to gain that starting job, at least on first and second round. He also had some receptions in Week 1 too. I mean, Nyheim Hines, he's a great pass catcher. I do 100% agree with Drew on that. But Jonathan Taylor is definitely the starter here. There's no question about it. And I think he's going to take it by the reins, and I'm really excited to watch him go. 15 weeks of this, hopefully without any injuries, maybe even a little bit more if the Colts are as good as I think they will be. Didn't look that great during Week 1, but we'll have to see on that.
I mean, they outplayed Jacksonville for the most part. They just had some bad turnovers, didn't play well in the red zone, and you clean that stuff up as the year goes on. So, of course, losing to Jacksonville sucks, but there are some other teams that I'm a lot more worried about that I had going to the playoffs than Indianapolis, despite their loss.
I would also agree with that as well. But let's get into to some players that are a little bit more temporary on the injury spectrum, I guess. Le'Veon Bell, former star, I don't know about anymore, star running back for the New York Jets, he went down with a hamstring injury. Adam Gase apparently left him in after he kind of went down.
Yeah.
I believe it was that overthrown. It was an overthrow, and he kind of went down, looked a little bit banged up, came back in the game. Gase said he wished he wouldn't have put him in, but I mean, I don't know how much I believe in that. I don't really think he likes Lev Bell that much, so he might have just put him in on purpose, but I don't really know. He's going to be out for a few weeks. He was placed on the IR, so he's eligible to come back in 3 weeks, but we'll have to see on that. Who really knows? He could honestly be on a different team by then. I really have no idea what the Jets are doing. I have absolutely no idea. But I'd say the bigger of the two news is Saints star wide receiver, one of the best receivers in the league, Michael Thomas, down with the high ankle. I believe he's going to miss multiple weeks because of this injury. He says he might be able to play through it, but I mean, even if he is, not even just for fantasy, this is a huge downgrade for me with the entire New Orleans Saints offense. I mean, their passing attack, while it didn't in week one, usually runs through Michael Thomas and Michael Thomas exclusively. I mean, they have Emmanuel Sanders as well, but he's pretty old. It's pretty much just the only MT is their really only dominant wide receiver, and even if he plays, he's going to be very limited at what he can actually do, and I wouldn't expect much, both fantasy and real life. I'd rather him sit for a couple weeks and come back and get healthy. I don't know what you guys think about either one of the injuries, but let's hear it, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets are pretty irrelevant, honestly. This sucks if any team wanted to trade for Le'Veon Bell, but I don't really. I mean, they're just a mess. Obviously, with Adam Gase. I mean, even if you intentionally left him in there or put him back in when you knew he was injured, even if you did do that, why would you go out and say, "Hey, this is what I did"? Like, how do you think people are going to react to that? It's pretty ridiculous. And if I was Lev Bell for his career, because I think when he's with a good offense, as we saw with Pittsburgh, even as we times last year, he could be a really good player. But in terms of the Jets, I mean, they weren't doing anything anyway this year, whether Lev Bell was on the team or wasn't on the team. So obviously sucks for him, but I think he needs to get traded. I think he needs to demand a trade, needs to hold out, needs to get somewhere else. The problem is, though, his contract is ridiculous, so it's hard to trade. So the Jets are going to have to retain some of that. But in terms of Michael Thomas, though, that really applies to this year because, I mean, Tampa Bay, I know, Chris, you're kind of down on their defense a little bit, but I think their defense is a respectable unit, and they did not look – I know they had a few big plays. They scored – well, actually, I think the final score, they had 34 points, but one of those was a pick six, so they didn't even score 30 points. In Tampa Bay, they had penalties. They didn't look great on defense, and yet New Orleans still wasn't able to score. Drew Brees did not appear to have the same arm. I mean, he had that one really big play, but he didn't really appear to have the arm strength that we're used to him having. Again, he had a lot of his yards on little dink and dumps to Alvin Kamara or Latavius Murray. Maybe Michael Thomas was non-existent that game, so maybe it makes you feel a little bit better because he didn't really play at all against Tampa Bay to begin with. However, I mean, I don't think this is going to be an elite offense like a lot of us had expected because I don't think Drew Brees is as good as he used to be. I don't think Michael Thomas is going to be, even when he comes back, whether he comes back now or 3 weeks from now. I don't think he's going to completely be able to overcome this injury, and I think New Orleans is still obviously a really good team, but their offense, I don't know. I'm starting to have some question marks with them for sure.
Yeah, his presence on the field makes a big difference, whether he's actually getting the ball or not. So, and then you got to remember, you kind of look at the schedule. They have Vegas this week, Green Bay next week, and maybe even Detroit. That could be of a trap game a little bit, depending on how Michael Thomas progresses through his injury. But, well, I'm not saying the Lions are going to win, but I'm just saying it'll affect them quite a bit in the next couple of weeks for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe lost one or two more than they should have.
Yeah, I actually want to post something to you guys real quick. Des Bryant. Right, he signed with. He's still a free agent. He signed with them last year. Right, was that last year when he got injured like this first practice? It's a body, and they don't really have a lot. I mean, outside Emmanuel Sanders, they don't really have a lot of other, and the backfield obviously they don't really have another good receiving options. I feel like Des Bryant would be able to give them some really good reps.
Yeah, that might be the case for sure. I could see them. I mean, it wouldn't really make much sense right now because he'd have an 8-game suspension when he comes back. But Antonio Brown, this is a team that needs to win it all basically this year. That's a guy you could see maybe go in there. That's definitely a possibility. Or either one of the next two guys we're going to talk about, Odell Beckham Jr. or Allen Robinson. I feel like we can kind of go over this quickly because seems kind of like it's mostly resolved. OBJ is still a little cloudy, but the source on that was Mike Francesa or whatever his name is, but he said something about Odell getting traded possibly, and I don't really think it was actually true. I think it was a It was kind of just him spitballing personally. I don't think it was an actual source. So for now, I think we can kind of put that one to bed. We can kind of move on. Allen Robinson as well. This one's a little more interesting just because he took everything off of his social media that was Bears related. He took him out of his bio on Twitter. It looked like he was on his way out the door for a couple of days there. I honestly thought he was about to get traded, but it seems like they've kind of had some discussions, had some talks. I think he's going to stay on the team for this year at least. Who knows if they actually want to pay him or not, but they absolutely need to. I mean, this guy, we haven't seen this guy with a good quarterback yet, and he still puts up the numbers he does. I think this is one of the best receivers in the league. I will always think this. I want to see him with some good quarterback at some point in his career, see what he actually can do. Because I believe he is a legit, possibly a top 5 receiver with a good quarterback. I don't know how you feel about Robinson in that regard, but in terms of the actual moves, I don't think anything's really going to come to fruition. But if you have a difference of opinion, you can go ahead and state it right now, Drew.
Now, I hope Allen Robinson does get traded, or I don't know, Mitchell Trubisky, man. He looked really good against Detroit. Here we go. Mitchell Trubisky, revenge tour. Let's go. Allen Robinson, maybe he finally does have that really good quarterback. But I honestly, I hope he gets traded just so he can, like you said, I think he's really talented. And we saw what he can do with Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky, and what Chase Daniel too last year in spurts, and probably eventually Nick Foles this year, if he doesn't end up getting traded. So I would love for him to go to New Orleans just to see him with Drew Brees, yeah, or with another team. And we know the Saints were trying to get Jadeveon Clowney, so they're not satisfied yet with their team. So maybe they try and get a guy like Allen Robinson or OBJ. I think OBJ in the Cleveland just hasn't worked. I don't think it's going to work. He just doesn't seem to want to be there. Him and Baker just don't seem to have any chemistry. I believe week 1, statistically speaking, that was the worst connection in the entire NFL. So I hope he gets traded for both his sake and the team's sake, because I just don't think it's going to work in Cleveland. But I don't know. OBJ is a bit overrated. I don't want to. I know. I'm sorry to say that, but he's a bit overrated in my opinion.
Yeah, just to touch on OBJ, I think Cleveland isn't short of any drama at all. So the whole thing could break down at any point. I really hope Baker kind of gets it together, and because he needs a bounce back game just to prove to himself and his confidence. And just touch on Allen Robinson just a quick little bit. I do think he has a bigger chance of getting traded. I know they were butting heads about contract extensions, and he might not even get that after the season. So you could probably see him get moved by the deadline to like a team that needs him, like New Orleans or any other team that wants to pay up for him, because it'll probably take a lot.
I mean,
definitely.
It's not all on Baker, though, I don't think. I mean, OBJ had a lot of drops there, too. Like, Baker put the ball in his hands, and he just dropped it.
He also, out of his 10 targets, only had 4 catchable passes throughout the 10. I'm putting that on Baker.
That's true.
He had the one bad drop. It's really like sticking out to me. That was a bad drop, but I thought he looked all right on the field. I thought like his routes, at least the ones I saw, because I was kind of flipping through games on the red zone, but the ones I saw, it looked like he was running some pretty crisp routes. He looked like he was healthier than last year, but I mean, four catchable passes out of his 10 targets. I mean, I don't really know what he's supposed to do with that.
And I agree with that. I think that they're both at fault, because also OBJ's body language wasn't great either. No, he just had the appearance like he just didn't want to be there and wanted to get traded. So that's kind of why that rumor was kind of put out. I don't really think there was any legitimacy behind it, but I'm really interested to see tonight how he looks, because everybody looks bad against Baltimore, right? They're one of the best teams in the league, yes, if not the best team. So it'll be interesting to see if him and Baker can improve tonight.
Yeah, absolutely will be. Let's move on to the news on the defensive side. Richard Sherman, cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers, with kind of an undisclosed, I actually believe it was ruled a calf strain today. He's on the IR for 3 weeks as well. I expect him to be back within 3 weeks. This doesn't have a lot of super relevant. It's not super relevant because, I mean, he's not out for the season. This is a good defense. They play the Jets this week, so basically he's missing 2 weeks. There's no point in playing him against the Jets. They're going to walk. They could just not show up and win the game still, because Sam can't complete a pass and they have no weapons whatsoever or defense. So pretty irrelevant this week. Maybe
Stevenson Crowder
will be. I don't know.
I'm hitting the panic button. I don't have a panic button here. I'm hitting the panic button for San Francisco. They did not look good against Arizona. Their defense, I thought, looked okay, so I think that's going to be fine. But offensively speaking, I know this is about the offense, but I do want to touch on real quick George Kittle. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, but that pass that Garoppolo threw to Kittle was like 15 feet over his head, and that's how he got injured, because he had to jump like this, and then a guy hit him right in the leg, and then he never looked the same again. And reportedly, he's not practicing this week, but he's probably going to play suit up on Sunday. But I don't know. Jimmy G didn't look good. The whole offense as a whole, even Mostert had that one really big play, and even outside of that, he didn't look amazing. He still looked pretty good, though. Defensively, they kind of choked down the stretch, but they looked okay. But I know this really has to do with Richard Sherman on the IR, but I'm kind of concerned about San Francisco. I think they're still a playoff team, obviously, but I'm not sure if they're going to repeat as NFC champs. I'm concerned.
Yeah, obviously it should be an easy win for them this week, but in terms of the next couple of weeks, they could probably struggle a little bit. And I would even be concerned if they didn't win in a blowout fashion, because I think that's definitely a possibility. Yeah. Just depends on how the offense holds up, and if it's a really close game, then I would be panicked as well.
Yeah, they should
for sure
dominate this game, and if they don't, that's when I would start to hit the panic. I thought Arizona looked good as well, so I mean, it was a good game, but yeah, I mean, it's week 1. I'm not going to overreact to a team that just made the Super Bowl that's returning most of their team with a good amount of.
I'm overreacting
at the receiving core and a couple injuries on the defensive side as well. But last really big news, we didn't write this one on there. Miles Sanders returned to practice, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's big for them. Also, Lane Johnson back to practice. They need that. Their offensive line looked horrible, and they get Aaron Donald this week, so they definitely that'll help out a little bit. But also, this one stings for me because I just made a trade for him in fantasy. But a wide receiver from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris Godwin, delayed, kind of a weird, this doesn't happen very often, but showed delayed signs of a concussion after a couple days with concussion-free symptoms. I don't know if either one of you saw, but he took an absolute shot at the end of that game. Like that, he got drilled by DJ Swearinger over the middle. It was a clean hit. It was a shoulder bang play to the head. I mean, he's in concussion protocol. I personally think he's going to miss this week. After that, hopefully he's going to be all right, but not great news for a team that, I mean, they're going to be most likely be in a shootout this week against Carolina. They need all the weapons they can get, and I think they will beat Carolina. Kind of a spoiler to my pick, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be a close game. So hopefully he can come back for that. What do you think about, do you think Mike Evans is going to have a big week this week coming back from the injury, Drew?
I really do. I mean, I'm concerned because Godwin, it took a little while to get going, but he seemed to be the only big weapon, including Gronkowski, that Brady seemed to have like kind of some sort of chemistry. I know Scotty Miller too, right? Everyone's hopping on the Scotty Miller bandwagon, but come on. Godwin was a big time player that showed any sort of chemistry with Brady. So it really sucks for that reason. But again, Tampa Bay gets a very weak defense in Carolina this week. I think this is probably one of the best games for Godwin to miss, and I think Mike Evans is going to be due for a monster week and kind of redeem himself, because he only had one catch for 2 yards and a touchdown last week. I mean, that was pretty tough for Mike Evans. But I think he redeems himself this week.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to say too much because I think we'll talk about him a little later. But I'm ready to get into the picks if you are.
Yep. Sounds good to me. Let's include the news and notes and get into the picks, Drew.
Let's go. So the first game, Thursday night matchup. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I've seen like the previous Thursday night game, the season opener. I didn't really see that many ads for, but this Cincinnati-Cleveland game, I've seen so many ads for it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me watching TV, but it's a big game. I know some of you guys are a little kind of whatever, but for me, Cincinnati Bengals versus Cleveland Browns. You got the Joe Burrow Bengals. Should have won that game against the Chargers. Burrow led him down the field. Semi-controversial offensive pass interference, and then a missed kick because the kicker was like, "Oh, I hurt my calf," and then he's like, "Oh, actually, he's fine." So that's a little okay, whatever, buddy. And then you got the Browns, who we already talked about earlier, looked awful against the Ravens. Interesting to see if they actually are as good as people thought they were, or even as bad as maybe other people thought they were. So, Roman, you can go first here. Bengals or Browns?
Yeah, I kind of said this like leading up to the podcast, but my heart wants Joe Burrow to win, but my head needs to assume that Baker can bounce back. This is his third year now, and if he can't beat the Bengals, even at their highest, I think we're gonna have some problems here. So just for Baker's sake, and I really hope I don't get this wrong, just because I need the point, I'm gonna go with the Browns this time.
Yep. Nothing different for me here. I'm going to go with Cleveland. I think they run the ball with Nick Chubb very well this week. And they win this game pretty easily, in my opinion. I think they have a bounce back week.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. I think people are a little bit higher on the Bengals now just because they're like, oh, their defense looks super good, but their defense was and the Chargers, which is not not great, and they looked really bad offensively. So I think the defense looked good more so because of how bad the offense was. And I think the Browns, have the offensive firepower to be really good, and they're going to put a lot of points against this Bengals. And their defense, I think, is going to be better than they were against, again, a really good offense in Baltimore. So I could see Joe Burrow really struggling here under the bright lights, or I could also see Joe Burrow just dominating like Baker Mayfield did in his rookie year against the Jets. Either or, but I think the Browns are ultimately going to win. So this is the next game we're going to talk about is a game that I'm like really excited for some reason. I don't know why. Both these teams just interest me. And it's the New York Giants and the Chicago Bears. The Giants looked respectable against a potential Super Bowl contender in the Steelers on Monday Night Football. If it wasn't for a just bonehead Daniel Jones decision, Daniel Jones actually played a really, really good game. He just made one really bad interception in the end zone. The Giants might have won that game. And the Bears, obviously, I don't really want to talk about it as a Lions fan, but they had a monster fourth quarter comeback. Should have lost that game, but hey, I guess DeAndre Swift has bricks for hands, so what are you going to do? So, Chris, how will you jump into this one? Giants or Bears?
I'm going to go with what I would say is the first upset of the week for me. Pretty early on into the schedule, I'm going with the Giants in this one. I think their offense. I think the Chicago defense, especially the run defense, looked really bad in week one. And I think even Stafford had some success through the air. Should have had a second touchdown pass, like you said, to DeAndre Swift, but he unfortunately wasn't able to come down with it. Give me the Giants. I thought they actually looked all right. Their defense, while it wasn't great, they did kind of start off hot. So, if they do that against Trubisky, you could see a similar game script to the Lions, but I don't think the Giants are going to blow 20 points or they're going to score 21 points unanswered against the Giants as well.
I actually kind of respect you for that pick because this is the game I was toying with as well. And obviously the Bears, it's a sore topic for me. But obviously if the Bears play like they did in the fourth quarter for a full game, I think they can easily come up with this game. And I think Trubisky's best is better than Daniel Jones' best at this moment. So I'm going to go with Chicago.
So I'm the deciding person here. Who am I going to go with, Giants or Bears? Like I said, I think this could go either way. I really want to pick Mitch Trubisky because I am just hopping onto his bandwagon right now for some reason. I don't know why. I thought he looked – I didn't even think he looked that great, if I'm being honest. But I like that. I feel like that was what he needed to maybe get over the hump. At the same time, though, I thought Daniel Jones looked really good, and Saquon had a pretty brutal game. I think he redeems himself here against the Bears because the Bears D looked okay, but not great. So I think I'm also going to go with maybe the upset. I think it's a pretty kind of a toss-up game. Like I said, I could see it going either way. But I think the Giants are ultimately going to emerge victorious because they looked really good against a really good Pittsburgh team. Only lost by, I think, 10 points, and that's with the brutal interception by Jones.
Agreed.
So next up, we got Lions-Packers. Lions obviously blew, I think, the 10th or 11th fourth quarter lead under Matt Patricia. So great time to be a Lions fan. They should have won it. They shouldn't have been in the position, honestly, for DeAndre Swift to have to make that catch. But at the same time, if you're a quote unquote electric pass catching running back, all I hear all offseason how great he is catching the ball and receiving, and then he just looks like Eric Ebron in the end zone and just drops a blatant pass. It's a little frustrating. But anyway, I don't need to talk about that anymore. Then we got the Packers, who looked amazing. Aaron Rodgers might be an MVP candidate this year, just saying, but they looked really, really good. So Roman, you said you wanted to do this one first, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm not here going to convince you to pick the Lions or anything. I wouldn't do that. You guys can pick whoever you want. But just to look at this matchup in a bubble of itself, right? The last couple of years, we've seen some great matchups between these two teams. The Lions kind of had the upper hand, actually, more times than not. And Matt LaFleur recently said that they were lucky to even get two from Detroit last year, which I think we can all agree on at least. However, Green Bay looked really good week one. I don't know what the corner situation is going to be for Detroit yet. Trufant might be back. He might not. Okuda's practicing, though. But obviously, there's a real game changer in this game. There's only one man who can, change the outcome of this game. Only one man to manipulate the outcome of this game, and that's Clete Blakeman. Go Pack, go!
You summed it up nicely. There isn't really that much for me to add. Packers by a lot. I think this is going to be an ugly game for Lions fans. I think it's going to get ugly quickly, and I think Rodgers is going to have a big day.
I agree. I already put it in there. Packers, I think it's going to be a blowout. I know the Vikings game, the score was close at the end, but they actually smacked them, and the Vikings just got a few garbage time touchdowns. A lot of people were like, Vikings might be a dark horse Super Bowl contender. And I think the Lions, with their injuries on defense, like you mentioned, Roman, I think they're going to lose this game. And I don't know, maybe it'll be close. The offense, maybe they're okay. Maybe they're good. Adrian Peterson looked good.
They need Galladay.
I know Roman
sure.
wants to talk about that. Yeah, Galladay needs to be back. Galladay's back. I think it's going to be close, but ultimately, I think the Packers are going to win regardless. And Aaron Rodgers is adding to his MVP case, baby. He's winning the MVP this year. I'm calling it right now. All right. Next game, we got Falcons-Cowboys. The Falcons scored a ridiculous amount of points. Matt Ryan had like 450 yards. And they still lost to the Seahawks because they do not have a defense. Let's just be honest. And then the Cowboys had just an awful game. I know the Rams are a really good defense. I got the hat on right now, but their offense looked just as like it did last year. Making Chris looked a little weird for picking them to win the Super Bowl because their offense is supposed to be really good, and they looked just as like they did last year. Controversial fourth down call by Mike McCarthy. But Chris, who you got here, Falcons or Cowboys?
Yeah, I went with the Falcons last week. I'm not making that mistake again. That defense looked horrible. I think Dallas gets on track. I'm gonna keep digging myself into that hole. I think while they didn't look that great week one, I also thought the Rams looked pretty good, and they may be a better team than people think. So I'm not gonna overreact too much to the week one. I would be a little bit concerned, mildly concerned for them as my Super Bowl pick, but I think they bounce back here in a big way and beat the Falcons in a close game, high scoring game, but I think they get the job done.
Yeah, in a week of where I think it'll be mostly a chalk, I expect it to be. This will be my upset for this week, and I can only give you a good logical reason for it. I just feel like Atlanta did play pretty solid though, even though they lost. But I think they can pull one out of the bag here.
I get that, and I kind of wanted to pick Atlanta too, even though I also fell for them last week like Chris did. At the same time, though, I think Dallas redeems himself this week. Atlanta's defense looked awful. Dallas's defense looked pretty okay, I thought. Los Angeles, I think, doesn't have as good of an offense as Atlanta, but they still got Sean McVay. They're still a creative offense, and Dallas did a pretty good job at containing them. I think they slow down Atlanta. More so than Seattle could. And I think their offense has a really good bounce back game. Puts up, I'm going to call it right now, at least 40 points, and to lead Dallas to the victory. But big time redemption game for Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott, and the entire offense. But next up, definitely not the most entertaining game this week for sure. I'm surprised this game wasn't on Thursday Night Football. It's Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Tennessee Titans. This used to be a classic Thursday night on NFL Network game, but I think it's on the 1 o'clock slate here for this week. The Jaguars obviously pulled up a massive upset. I would say they didn't look better than the Colts, as I said earlier, but Gardner Minshew he only threw one incompletion, had 3 touchdowns, looked really, really good. Everyone's picking them to be the worst team in the NFL. They beat one of the best teams in the NFL last week. You definitely have to respect that. And then Tennessee, Gostkowski, missed 4 field goals and then hit the game winner. Awesome redemption story there for him. But I thought Tennessee looked really good. Their defense looked really good. Their offense looked good, and I think it would have looked better on the score sheet had Gostkowski made those field goals. But I think they're going to be a good team here. So what is it, Roman? What do you think, Jaguars or Titans?
Yeah, this will be a closer game than we expect. I know we all kind of thought they had blowout potential by the Colts last week. And you guys being so high on the Colts, that pick kind of blew up in your faces a little bit. But I do think it'll be a close game, obviously, and Derrick Henry is a Jaguars killer, and I'll go with Tennessee this time.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville, while had an emotional week 1 victory, I think Derrick Henry has his best game of the entire season this week and runs absolutely crazy and wild. If he wasn't so obvious, he'd be my start of the week this week. I think he can be the running back 1 in fantasy, and I think he's going to score 3 times en route to an absolute blowout. I'm calling for it. Blowout.
I'm also picking Tennessee, but I'm more with you, Roman. Minshew, I don't know. Maybe I'm buying the Minshew mania again, baby. I bought tickets last year, and I'm subscribing again to the Minshew but he had a motivational post-game speech, a lot of F-bombs. I was like, yes, let's go. It's going to be a close game. I think Jacksonville's going to be a sneaky team. They're going to finish like 6-10, probably a lot better than people thought they were. I think they're going to be in this game. As we saw, Tennessee kind of likes to shoot themselves in the foot, but ultimately I think they're going to win. I could see Derrick Henry having a monster game, though, like you said, Chris. Next game, kind of a sneaky good game. I think two teams that severely disappointed week one. Minnesota Vikings got absolutely destroyed, as I mentioned before, by Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. But I thought their offense did look good, especially late, even though it was kind of garbage time. And the Colts, already said, I think they could have really – they played well enough to beat Jacksonville, just had some costly penalties, red zone mistakes, and obviously Phillip Rivers interceptions. So, Chris, which team do you think is going to redeem themselves this week, the Vikings or the Colts?
I'm going with the Colts. Another team I'm all in on this year. I'm not one of those to overreact as much to week one. Indianapolis didn't look great. Rivers he started off on fire in that game. He kind of fell apart. Jonathan Taylor, through the air looked awesome. On the ground, he left a little bit to be desired. Like I said before, I really like him. I think the Minnesota defense could easily be the worst in the entire NFL. They looked horrible in week one, and I think Indianapolis wins a close game, pretty high scoring, but not maybe in the 20s. I think they win by a field goal.
I knew this is one game that we could possibly split on, and Phillip Rivers had exactly the game I expected him to have. Kind of started out hot, like you said, but then shot himself in the foot with a couple of picks. One to the rookie, C.J. Henderson, and one to kind of ice the game. Minnesota kind of kept with Green Bay a little bit, had some fire a little bit at the beginning. I'm going to go with Minnesota, and I think it'll be a close game, I do think, but Minnesota just seems the better team coming into week two.
I could not disagree with you more, Roman. I think the Colts look like the better team by far in week one. I think they have the defense to play. I think their defense is going to be the difference in this game. I think it is going to be higher scoring in the high 20s, in the 30s. But I think they have the offense to feast on a relatively weak, surprisingly weak Minnesota defense, especially in the secondary. And I think Indianapolis's defense is okay, is respectable. Phillip Rivers put them in positions to not succeed. I think Rivers is going to throw some picks, but I think he's going to be able to feast on the secondary enough. And I think Jonathan Taylor's going to have a big game as well. And T.Y. Hilton too. And they're going to have a big game and they're going to win. But we'll jump in now to the next one. Buffalo, Miami. Buffalo, as expected, destroyed the lowly Jets. Josh Allen's really good. Stephon Diggs looked good in his Buffalo debut. And then the Dolphins, Ryan Fitzpatrick did not look great. I'm interested to see how long they wait with him before Tua gets to start. And they ended up losing to the Patriots. The Cam Newton game, I think they lost by like 10 points. Not an entertaining game by any means, but their defense looked okay, I guess. I think Roman, you're up. Or who's up? Chris? Yeah, Chris is up, I think. Who do you got?
Yeah, so far me and Drew have been step by step just picking the same teams. It's not going to change here most likely unless you're going the Dolphins. I will be taking Buffalo in what I believe to be a little bit lower scoring game for Buffalo, but I think they still win fairly easily.
Yeah, I agree as well. Josh Allen had a pretty good game. Besides his 2 fumbles, if he cleans that up, they should be fine.
Yeah, not much to add. Buffalo's a better team. I don't really need to say that much more. This should be another chalk one, and I think this is Roman. So Roman, I think you get 2 because I think I gave Chris 2 in a row on accident. But San Francisco, already mentioned it. They looked pretty brutal. Yeah, Roman's already put it in there before I'm even done talking. They looked pretty brutal against Arizona, but they're going to be a good enough team. The Jets are just awful. So you guys already put your picks in. Do you have anything to add, or is San Francisco just a better team?
Yeah, the Jets suck. I think they're going to get the top pick in the draft. Their offense is such a embarrassment in general. I don't think San Francisco scores over 30 points in this game, but I could see like 27-7, 27-10 being the final score. That's what I believe it'll be, a 2-touchdown game. I don't think San Fran's going to put up 50 on them, but because their defense is it's probably like bottom 10, so it's not as bad as their offense, but I think it's going to be a low scoring, boring game that I have absolutely no interest in watching.
Agreed.
Completely agree with that. Definitely not going to tune into that game, but I am going to tune into this game for sure. As you mentioned, Chris, Miles Sanders is back. Lane Johnson might be back. And the Rams looked really, really good there against the Cowboys. The Eagles blew a 17-point lead against the Washington football team. Not great, but it'll be interesting to see if they redeem themselves here. Roman, I'm going to throw it to you again. Who you got, Rams or Eagles?
Yeah, I was the only one who chose the Rams last week, and I'm pretty happy with how that paid off, especially against a good Cowboys team who we kind of disagreed on a little bit in terms of who was going to win. But they looked pretty good on their first drive. Goff had that connection to Woods, and Woods is one of my fantasy picks. He had a pretty good game. Goff, I had him on my team, but he didn't have a decent game. I think he'll bounce back. And Donald, obviously. They're going to have a little bit more their hands full with Sanders coming back, but I do think the Rams are going to win this game.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take the Eagles. Another team, maybe this is a team to be a little bit more worried about. I think they get the job done in this one. I think the Rams, while they looked pretty good, I think Aaron Donald was a force. He may be again this week. Having Miles Sanders and Lane Johnson back, I think it gives Philly the boost they need to win this game and even up their series record and kind of quell the fears of Week 1 loss against Washington.
My mind told me to take the Rams last week, but my pride is what made me take the Cowboys. I have been high on the Cowboys. I'm not making that mistake again. I thought the Rams defense looked perhaps like one of the best units in the NFL, maybe the second best unit. And maybe I'm teasing my pick here in a couple games here a little bit later, but they looked like a really good defense. And the offense, I think, is going to come together. Malcolm Brown obviously had a huge game. You mentioned that Jared Goff didn't look good, but I think he could have a bounce back game here against a just injury-riddled Eagles team. I think it's going to be a close game overall, but I think the Rams emerge victorious. Next up, we got Broncos, Steelers, another kind of interesting game. Two teams that played on Monday night this past week. The Broncos should have won that game. Some questionable time management calls by head coach for the Broncos, Vic Fangio, ultimately cost them the game. I mean, when you have a guy that misses, 4 field goals in a game, you should win that game, and the Broncos found a way to lose it. But they did. Their defense was a lot better than I thought it would with the loss of Von Miller. And Drew Lock showed flashes. Jerry Jeudy looked talented, just dropped a lot of passes. But I think the Broncos are still going to be a good team this year. And the Steelers looked like a Super Bowl contender. Defense looked amazing. Ben Roethlisberger looked like he was back. Juju had his best game since 2018. So James Conner's hurt, but I think Snell's going to be a really good back there as well. So, Chris, who you got, Broncos or Steelers?
And I am excited to watch this game, but I am fully expecting a defensive slugfest in this one. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. I think the Broncos will not be able to run the football, so have to resort to the pass. And if Drew Lock can get it done, maybe they can keep it close. I think it will be a pretty close game, actually, because I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be able to run the ball that effectively. I think what's going to set them apart is Big Ben throwing a touchdown or two to his receiving core. So I think that's what's the difference between the two teams are in this one.
Yeah, I agree. If you have Melvin Gordon, I'd sit him far away from your starting lineup as possible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pittsburgh actually had a pretty decent game. Juju and Big Ben had a better connection than I thought they would to at least start out the season. But they proved they have that connection, and Juju's looking really good, better than his last season. I will go Pittsburgh as well.
Not a whole lot to add. I think it's going to be a defensive slugfest, like you said, but I think Big Ben looked really good. Juju looked really good. I think they're going to have a good enough offense to win this game, but it's going to be entertaining. Definitely one I'm going to check out. Next up, we got the Panthers and the Buccaneers. The Panthers looked good. Their offense looked really good. I thought Teddy Bridgewater looked good. Teddy Two Gloves looked good there under center in his Carolina debut, but their defense looked not great, and basically it was just going to be whoever has the ball last wins this game, and that's how the Raiders ended up winning. Buccaneers, I know everyone's just jumping ship, but I didn't think they looked awful for it being their first game ever. I think they're a team that really kind of was hurt by the no off season. Their defense looked respectable. Their offense looks like it has the talent there to be good eventually. It's just going to take maybe a few games. I think this is a perfect bounce back game for the Buccaneers. But Roman, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a potential slugfest right here, and we all agreed last week that we would all go with New Orleans because Tampa Bay didn't have that continuity yet. But after if they had the experience, we'd pick them. One game's all I really need. I think I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay. I think they'll edge it out here.
Oh, man, this is a tough one because I really want to go Carolina, especially if Chris Godwin misses this game. But I think Carolina's defense is bad enough to allow Tom Brady to have a good bounce back performance. So I will take the Bucs, but this is probably the pick I'm least confident in all out of any pick so far.
I mean, I think this could be a potential, maybe even a potential blowout. I think Tampa Bay's defense can do enough to limit the Carolina offense. I think Tom Brady Tampa's offense. They want to redeem themselves. Obviously, the Godwin injury hurts, but it'll free up. Maybe not free up Mike Evans, but kind of maybe get him some more targets, get him going. Gronk gets the ball a little bit more as well. Scotty Miller continues to look like a good receiver, I guess. I think Tampa Bay is going to be. I think they're going to win this game pretty convincingly. I disagree a little bit with you guys, but ultimately we're all in agreement. Tampa Bay is going to get a bounce back game here. So next up, we got the Washington football team and the Arizona Cardinals. Two teams that looked really good in Week 1. Washington's offense looked kind of questionable, but their defense looked like I teased that earlier with the Rams. I think this might be one of the best defenses in the league. They looked really, really good. And then we got the Cardinals who beat a underperforming San Francisco team. Their offense looked amazing, especially their late once Hopkins and Murray kind of got it going a little bit. And their defense looked a lot better than I think a lot of people expected. So I think Roman will throw it to you. Who you got here, Washington or Arizona?
Yeah, I think these two teams obviously kind of snuck by with a Week 1 win. Washington, I think, is a little bit more of a pretender with their offense. They definitely should have lost that game. But Hopkins for Arizona had a better debut than I thought he was going to have. And I think they got an easier matchup for Week 2. I do think Arizona is going to win.
Yep, I'm in agreement. I think this is going to be a pretty close game. I think Haskins has find some success while he's trying to keep them in the game against Arizona's offense. On Hopkins, man, I cannot believe how good. Like we were talking about Juju and Big Ben's connection. I cannot believe how good Kyler Murray and Hopkins were together. I thought Hopkins was going to have the chance to be a bust. His target share, I was expecting to go a little bit down from the 30% that it was in the Texans. He got targeted on a 44% of their passing plays last week. So, I mean, you can't really – I mean, maybe it won't be that all year, but the concerns are gone. Hopkins could end up as the wide receiver 1 this year, and we could all be – anyone can be dumb for thinking that he was not going to be that. And we already saw in Week 1. I think I'm already wrong.
For this game, for me, I mean, this is the one I really – kind of like you said, Chris, with Carolina, Tampa Bay. I really want to pick Washington because I thought their defense looked really, really good. But just their offense – they were able to take advantage of opportunities, and I liked the leadership qualities that Haskins showed on the sideline and in the locker room. Apparently, when Rivera was getting an IV because he recently announced he had skin cancer. But ultimately, I think Arizona could be a playoff team this year. I was a little bit lower on them, and I think some other people were. But I think they can be a legit playoff team, and I think they're going to add to they're going to start off 2-0 and here and be a sneaky good Washington defense. I think. Next up, we got Chiefs, Chargers. Chiefs looked really, really good against the Texans. Not a whole lot to add there. The defense looked really good as well. Chargers, kind of similar to the Washington football team in a way. The offense looked not great, and the defense looked pretty good against a decent Cincinnati offense at that. So, Chris, who do you think? You got the Chiefs or the Chargers? I feel like this is probably pretty chalk, but who you got?
Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs by a lot in this one. I think I honestly think they played a B- game on offense. I thought Mahomes looked kind of in Week 1. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a monster. Their defense looked decent against a Houston offense that's trying to find some chemistry. I mean, if the Chargers can't score a lot of points against most likely an awful Cincinnati defense this year, I don't know who they're going to score against. I think Tyrod Taylor is horrible. He looked terrible in Week 1. Eckler didn't get the ball out of the backfield. Keenan Allen didn't do anything. I think the Chiefs win this game pretty easily and with conviction.
Yeah, it seems like we've all been in agreement for these last couple of picks, and that won't change at all. I'll go with Kansas City as well.
Yep, not a lot to add. The defense is going to be good enough against I think Kansas City's defense is better than Cincinnati's defense. I think the Chargers are going to have even more struggles offensively. Taylor seems like a very nice guy, great leader, but I just don't think he's a great quarterback. And I think Mahomes is going to want to have a bounce back game. I could see this being at least a 3-score touchdown kind of game, win for Kansas City. Next up, maybe a very similar game to Houston's opponent last week, which was Kansas City, because now they have to face Baltimore. It's an absolute just terrible start to the schedule for the Houston Texans. Makes Texans believers like Roman maybe a little nervous here to start the season. But Baltimore absolutely destroyed Cleveland. Lamar Jackson looked amazing. Mark Andrews looked amazing. The defense looked amazing. Everything looked amazing for the Ravens. And I think it was 38-6, just an absolute destruction of the Browns. And the Texans scored a few touchdowns late till they make the score look respectable, but really was never in it against Kansas City on the season opener. So Roman, who you got here? Are you all in on the Texans still, or are you going to pick the Ravens?
Well, I mean, I still think Houston can win the division, and I said this in the AFC South episode that this would be a tough schedule to open up with. But yes, Baltimore will win this game, and but it won't make a difference in terms of how I view them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just keep noticing this week there is a lot of chalk picks for me, man. I think this is actually kind of an iffy slate. There's a lot of crappy teams playing really good teams. I just see being a lot of different blowouts. Hopefully, there's a couple upsets that even we don't predict, but if not, there's going to be some good teams winning this week, and not very many upsets in my opinion.
Yeah, this is going to be an absolute blowout. I think it's going to be very similar to the game that Cleveland played. I could see happening is Baltimore gets up by a ton, and then Houston scores a few touchdowns late to make the score look respectable. But Deshaun Watson did not look good in week 1. The offense outside, I mean, David Johnson looked pretty good, I guess. But even Will Fuller, I mean, I know he had a good game, but it was kind of non-existent there for the most part. He sneakily had like 8 receptions for over 100 yards. And Baltimore just looked amazing. So, yeah, I think this could be very similar to the Kansas City Houston game, where it's like Kansas City gets up by a ton, or Baltimore gets up by a ton, and then Houston kind of creeps back a little bit to make it look respectable. But
and next week we'll have Kansas City, Baltimore play each other, so that'll be another good game.
That's Monday Night Football too, I believe. That's gonna be
yeah, it's gonna be a really, really good game.
I cannot wait for that one.
All right, so next up, second to last game here, New England Patriots versus Seattle Seahawks. Both teams looked really, really good. I thought New England's defense looked a lot better than I was expecting. Chase Winovich, Michigan alum, had a really good game against the Dolphins. Cam Newton also looked potentially like the dynamic hybrid quarterback. He showed flashes of obviously winning the MVP a few years ago, leading the Panthers to the Super Bowl. And the Seahawks looked like quite possibly one of the best teams in the NFC. Offensively, they finally aired it out. Russell Wilson looked really good. Metcalf looked good. Lockett looked good. Chris Carson looked good. The defense looked okay against Atlanta. So this could be a good game. Two teams that had a really solid week 1. But Chris, who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, I believe this is the best game of the entire slate this week. These are two very solid teams. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch, back and forth. Maybe not insanely high scoring. I think the Seahawks get a little bit limited by New England's great defense, but I think both teams are able to score a decent amount of points. I'm going to take Seattle because of how good Russell Wilson played in week 1. I expect him not to play as good, but I expect him to have a near perfect game and need to play that good for them to win the game. I think they're going to struggle on the ground. I think New England throws a couple touchdowns. Cam Newton runs another one in. 24-21 will be my final score for this one just because it's such a good game. I'll give you the score as well.
Yeah, I think you said it all that needed to be said here. I'm not going to be too concerned about New England, especially when you kind of score 21 on the Dolphins. We're not really sure what the Dolphins' defense looks like yet for this season, but it will be probably a shootout. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But this could go either way, and I'm excited for this matchup. But yes, along with Chris, I will go with Seattle.
I've been too chalk here, so I'm going to shake things up a bit. And I'm going the Patriots. I'm obviously a Patriots fan, so of course I am biased. I will be the first to admit this, but I really like what I saw from Cam Newton. I like Bill Belichick. If you look at the Buccaneers and Tom Brady, I think Belichick might be a better coach than Tom Brady as a quarterback. I'm just saying. Just saying it right now. After week 1, Belichick looks like he's still a really good coach, and I think Seattle maybe kind of feasted, and their offense was a little bit better just because of how bad Atlanta's defense was. And I think Cam Newton really puts the league on notice here and gets an upset win over the Seahawks. But it's going to be a really close game. I think definitely going to be one. As you said, Chris, there's some stinkers here, so I think that's going to be an entertaining game to watch for sure. And then the final game, Monday Night Football game, the Raiders, after a nice win against an upstart Panthers team in week 1, are opening up their new stadium against the Saints, who put the league on notice a little bit that they are one of the best teams in the league by making Tom Brady and the Buccaneers look awful. So, Roman, why don't you start us off here? Who do you got, Saints or the Raiders?
I believe you two are scheming up something for this pick, but I'm just going to sit back and listen to it. I'm not going to fault you guys for anything. I'm just going to go with New Orleans here and take it away.
Yeah, it's the home opener for Las Vegas. This is their game in the new stadium that looks absolutely incredible from the outside. I'm sure it looks awesome inside as well. Give me the Raiders in this one. I think no MT is going to hurt Drew Brees. I think Josh Jacobs has a big day on the ground. Give me the Raiders in this one. I think it's going to be an upset win on Monday night. The Raiders look solid in week 1 for me, especially Jacob, like I said before. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm changing my mind here. I'm going with the Saints. I think I think that it's gonna be a really close game. And as Roman and Chris kind of alluded to, I did put in our group chat that I thought the Raiders were going to win this game, and I still think they can win this game. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think, just because they're going to have the juice of that new stadium opening up. However, no fans are going to be there, and I think if there were fans there, and they're definitely win this game. However, I think the Saints defense looked really good. They're going to be able to limit a Raiders offense that I think kind of took advantage of a very, very, maybe the worst in the NFL defense in the Panthers. I think the Saints defensively play well, and I think offensively they kind of have a little bit of a redemption game, even though obviously the loss of Michael Thomas will make this game a little bit closer. But yeah, I'm going with the Saints here, but I will be cheering for the Raiders because I think they definitely have a shot to win this game.
I'm excited for this one for sure. Yeah,
it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, that's it for the pick'ems for this week. You can kind of see the records there down below. Chris and I are tied for first at 10-6, and Roman's right behind there at 9-7. But I know Roman was really excited about his fantasy picks, so we can jump into fantasy picks right now. I'm not sure, Roman, if you want to start us off here with the fantasy picks, because I know you're really happy with. I don't know how it crept its way back in the news and notes. Roman hits on Peterson pick, but it's there, and I know you're really excited because Chris and I gave you some crap last week about your Peterson pick.
Yeah, I was even surprised a little bit because I expect him to get over 4. I said as long as he beats his projections, he'll be fine. But getting it over 100 yards total, I think that's well more than what we were hoping for. What I was, at least, from him. The second highest of our picks this week, besides the quarterback, who should get more than 10, obviously. But you guys will bounce back. Don't worry about it. It's only week 1. We all feel it. But yes, I'll start off this week. I'll start with what I alluded to from the beginning. If Chris Godwin is out this week, then I do think Mike Evans has a possibility of going off. He's kind of not really hampering, dealing with maybe his own limitations himself, but I do think he'll be good to go, and Tom Brady will need to get to him, especially in a matchup like this where it could possibly be a shootout, like I kind of mentioned earlier. But if you have Evans, you're starting him, and you're going to feel good about it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If Godwin plays as well, if he plays and he's cleared for concussion symptoms or whatever, I think both receivers are top 10. I think guys are absolutely in your lineup. Both had a little bit. I mean, Godwin was all right as well. He had a decent game. Evans obviously caught the touchdown, didn't really do anything else. Was limited by his injury, I believe. But they're going to try to get on the ball a little bit more in this game. Like I said before, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I almost picked Carolina to win, so I expect both teams to throw the ball a lot, and I really like Mike Evans this week.
Yeah, Mike Evans is going to be good. I think he's going to have a bounce back game. You said it there, Chris. He only scored 1 touchdown, did nothing else. I mean, literally, he did nothing else. He had 1 reception for 2 yards and a touchdown. So that was literally all he did. But it's going to be a good game. But Chris, why don't you jump into your fantasy pick?
Yeah,
and give like a brief overview of how your picks did last week, because I know they did not do so great.
No, I mean, to start, Deshaun Jackson, I mean, I got it wrong. He only had 2 receptions for the game for 40-some yards. I mean, not a great day, but he did receive a lot of deep targets. He had the second most, I believe it was the second most air yards in the league on just balls thrown in general to him on his 7 targets. So, I mean, that's impressive enough. I mean, I don't cut Deshaun Jackson yet. I think you got to give him a few more weeks. He's going to hit one of these weeks soon. But James Conner went down with an injury early in that game. Benny Snell took over. I'm kind of disappointed in James Conner. He's going to have a big week, and I usually am out on him, so I'm annoyed that I went in for once. And I mean, a rough first week. I'm gonna bounce back, and this is kind of, I mean, it's not a chalk pick, but it's the new hotness. I kind of alluded to it earlier. Jonathan Taylor, my start of the week, out of any position. I think he's gonna be top 5 running back this week. Minnesota's defense is absolutely atrocious. They look so bad in week 1. Obviously, Nyheim Hines, he's going to be involved. Taylor proved he could catch the ball as well. He had 6 receptions for over 60 yards. I think he gets a touchdown on the ground, over 100 yards. Give him 5 receptions as well. I think he's going to be awesome this week. Give me all of Jonathan Taylor and try to go get him in a trade. Might be tough. Go get him, though.
Yeah, I think he'll be a good play this week and for the weeks to come as well.
He's going to be a high end RB2, RB1. It's really going to make. I think Roman, when you were a little bit higher when we did our fantasy preview episodes, you were higher on taking him than Chris and I was. But that pick's really going to pay off, I think, because Marlon Mack's now out with the injury. It could be kind of a Clyde Edwards-Helaire-esque kind of thing where if you drafted early, Edwards-Helaire was like in the 4th or 5th round, and now he's like a first-round talent. I could see that happening with Jonathan Taylor as well. But I'll briefly go over my picks from last week. So I had Ben Roethlisberger, who I know Romans just crowning himself as the champion of last week's fantasy picks. But I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, 22 points, was the QB9 for PPR. I think that's that's pretty good. I feel like I hit on that pick. I feel confident that I hit on that pick. And then T.Y. Hilton, I did not hit on that pick. He only had 9 points, was a wide receiver 50. 9 points, I mean, that's okay. It's not going to lose you a week, but I thought he was going to be a lot better. Kind of disappointed by that. I'll jump into my picks for this week, or my first pick. And you guys are going too chalk. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is the hottest fantasy name on the market right now. Mike Evans is a wide receiver 1, clearly. So I'm going to go a little bit off the board here. And I thought you guys were going to say this name, but I guess not. And you mentioned earlier, Chris, he is older, but he is the wide receiver 1 in an elite level offense, and that's Emmanuel Sanders, who is going against a tough Raiders defense. Not a tough Las Vegas Raiders defense on Monday Night Football. I think the Saints want to have a bounce back game, and this is a guy in Sanders who's probably on your bench, and you can just put him at your flex, and I think he's going to get you a lot of points. He had a respectable week last week. I think he got about 10 in PPR, maybe 11. I think he get you 12 to 16 points this week, at least. And I think that could be the difference in you losing or winning a week if you can get that out of your flex spot. I think Emmanuel Sanders is going to have a really big week. And I think even if he gets a touchdown here, I think the volume is going to be there for him because they don't really have a whole lot of other options out of receivers, unless obviously Kamara is going to steal some touches for sure. But I think Sanders is going to have a really big week. I think he's going to be a game winner for sure.
Yeah, I love the pick here as well. I think Sanders in a game against the Raiders, they're going to need him to step up, and I think he'll answer the call and score a touchdown in this game. Drew, why don't you get into your second pick? Let's get them both right out of the way.
So another kind of off the board pick. A lot of people are ripping on him because it really wasn't even his fault, but I guess it kind of was. It was kind of a controversial call. Jalen Ramsey definitely kind of flopped a little bit, but it's Michael Gallup who is going against, as we already mentioned, a very weak Falcons defense. He's another guy that you can put. I'm going off the board a little bit. I didn't want to go chalk. I went too chalk with my pick'em, so I want to go off the board a little bit. This is another guy you could probably start your flex, maybe your wide receiver too, and he can get you very similar points to Emmanuel Sanders, maybe a little bit more than that. We saw with both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett both went off against Atlanta. I think they want to have Gallup have a bounce back game here. Obviously, Blake Jarwin's now out, so a lot of those touches are up for grabs. I think Gallup becomes even more of a focal point in this offense. I think he's going to have a really big week here and feast against the weak Atlanta secondary.
Yeah, I like Gallup a lot this week as well. I think him and both CeeDee Lamb are both flex options and both could have big weeks as well. I definitely like the pick there for sure.
Yeah. Two solid picks by you, Drew. Nice way to bounce back.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, whatever. I had Ben Roethlisberger. Whatever. Chris, jump. I'm not doing this again. Chris, jump into your pick.
I'm the one that really needs to bounce back this week. And yeah, Jonathan Taylor made him maybe a little bit chalk. I'm not calling him for just 15 points though. I think he's a top 5 running back this week. That's why he's my start of the week. You're playing him no matter what. I'm calling for the absolute week-winning performance from him. But
all right.
I was going to talk of my other pick as well. I will say who it was. It's AJ Brown, just because he had a down week 1. I'm not going now. Give me Jared Cook in the same matchup. Again, I'm taking Jared Cook, tight end, the New Orleans Saints. He had 5 receptions for 80 yards last week. Was kind of a beast. I expect him. If MT's out, I expect both him and Emmanuel Sanders to pick up the slack, as well as Kamara. I'm sure he'll be involved. They're still going to throw the football. And Jared Cook, he looked good last year and looked good in week 1. I think he's going to be a top 5 tight end this week.
I like that. Obviously, without Michael Thomas, you just spread the ball out more. Emmanuel Sanders, Jared Cook, even Taysom Hill might get a little more, but he won't be a fantasy relevant, obviously. But just in the game, he'll get a lot more touches and looks. But to dip into the backups, or not backups, just like other weapons on the Saints offense while their star is out, definitely a smart idea.
I like the AJ Brown pick too. He was actually one of my backup options. I think a lot of people are kind of soured on him, but I thought he looked really good against Denver, but he just didn't.
He didn't really get the ball that much. It was the Corey Davis show. Against the weak secondary, he should be solid. I felt a little bit attacked by my first chalk pick, so I wanted to go a little bit off after hearing Drew's. And Jared Cook, I think, is a really good play as well. So either one of those guys you can throw in there, but Jared Cook is my legitimate start of the week.
I'm actually surprised that I'm going to get both of the guys I want, and we haven't stolen each other's today, at least. I thought you guys would pick this guy because he has a great matchup, and we saw a lot of unexpected people go off week 1. Malcolm Brown, Robbie Anderson. There's plenty of other people, but I'm surprised none of you mentioned Raheem Mostert, who has an easy matchup with the Jets this week. If you had him in your lineup last week, you're gonna love it. And if you had him on your bench, you definitely want to start him this time around. And especially in a crowded backfield, this is the first time we saw McKinnon, Coleman, and Mostert all in the same backfield at once, it seems like. And we all know Shanahan likes to ride the hot hand, and that's Mostert this week.
Yeah, I mean, Mostert, he had a big week. It was mostly on the 175-yard touchdown. I thought about him as my start of the week a little bit, but I'm too worried about the other options in the backfield there. I think Tevin Coleman, he has the sickle cell problem, so he didn't really play a whole lot. I think he gets a little more run this week and produces some like 5 to 7 points in fantasy. I think Mostert is a good flex option, strong flex option, maybe a low end RB2. I also think McKinnon stays involved. He had a few receptions. They also it was kind of a weird game script. I think they are more on track to run the ball more, but I think they spread it out a little bit amongst the three of them.
Mostert was my other backup pick. It was him and AJ Brown. So he almost made my list. I feel like there's a lot of good starts to the week this week. I kind of share the same concerns that Chris does, just that they may be shared around a little bit too much. At the same time, though, they're most likely going to be up a lot on the Jets, and they're probably going to run the ball. And so it's very predictable, or very possible. That's the right word I was trying to think of. Very possible that all three of the San Francisco running backs are very fantasy relevant of this week, just because of how weak that Jets defense is going to be. And they're going to be up by a lot, most likely. So like the pick. I feel like we all made some good picks. Jared Cook is a little off the board, but you kind of convinced me there, Chris, that he's going to be good this week.
I think he has a solid week, and a guy that you can plug into your lineup as a tight end one and get 10 to 15 points is what I'm expecting. I think he could have 5 for 15, a touchdown. It's probably about his ceiling, but I think he has a safe floor as your tight end one this week.
And in terms of the pick 'em, I also think that the standings next week will be somewhat close as well. I know we kind of picked chalk for most of the games. I picked more upsets or more like one-sided games than you guys did, but hopefully that pays off. We'll see.
Yep. Yeah, fun to see.
We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, this week is not as maybe entertaining as some of last week's games. Last week's was a really good slate of games, especially for it being week 1. But teams are still getting adjusted. I could see a lot of upsets. I know we have a lot of chalk right now, but I could see some more upsets. Maybe Denver, Carolina, maybe even Washington. Who knows? I think there are going to be some close games, even if it is ultimately kind of chalk. But yeah, football's back. We're all super excited. Yeah, we're hopefully Chris's fantasy picks are better than they were last week, and hopefully Roman doesn't hit on his as much. So we don't have to hear about it all week about how he was right about Adrian Peterson. Only joking. But that's all for this episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Spotify, Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and make sure you search us on Apple Podcasts. Also, be sure to leave a comment down below on your thoughts on Adrian Peterson's quote unquote amazing week 1. Whether the Cowboys are still going to be a Super Bowl contender, anything that we talked about here this week, be sure to comment down below. Also, check out all of our upper episodes. We're going to have an NBA conference finals preview up as well. We also broke down each division, which is still very, very relevant because it's only 1 week. I know everyone loves to overreact, but it's still, all those previews are still very relevant for the season ahead. But that's all for this episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
See ya.